Welcome to Immortal Works Flash Fiction Friday, Episode 32, The Madman, by Beth Buck. Narrated by John Grundvig. "Have you heard from the Qualtrassi monarchy yet?" asked Chancellor Grundvig.
"Yes,"
replied King Drell. "And?"
"The conditions of our surrender were refused."
The air in the council chamber suddenly fell thick with despair. One counselor banged his fist on the polished ebony table. "Curse them! What are we going to do now?" Everyone turned to look at the king in hopeful expectation. His madcap military tactics had saved them more than once during this war. Perhaps he could do so again.
"Gentlemen," said the king, "the time has come to finally admit that we stand at the brink of defeat. But we do not need to die quietly, huddled in the corner sucking our thumbs like distressed children. We still have a chance to not only win the war, but to ensure that the Qualtrassi never darken our sovereign space, or anyone else's, ever again."
He paused for just a moment, deliberately piquing the council's curiosity and alarm. Grundvig had a pit in his stomach, as if he already knew what the king would say, but hoping he wouldn't say it.
"Frunum Hargel."
The council chamber echoed with murmurs of shock and horror. "Your Majesty!" Grundvig stood in protest. He said, scandalized, "I don't think you understand what you're suggesting."
"Nonsense!" snarled Drell. "I understand better than you think I do. I might have a better grasp of the situation than you do, come to think of it."
The king prodded the chancellor's chest with his finger in an offensive, aggressive way. Grundvig usually backed down when Drell got into one of his moods, but not this time. He stepped forward, nearly nose to nose with the king, and hissed loud enough for the rest of the council to hear. "Frunum Hargel is insane! He's uncontrollable! We cannot predict whether he will conquer our enemy or turn on our own troops. And then there is the curse." Drell backhanded the chancellor across the face.
"Fool! Don't you think I know that? When the Qualtrassi release the Dorkohj fleet, we won't have any other choice."
The chancellor dabbed the blood off of his nose. "There is always a choice, your majesty." Alarm sounded through the building.
"Report!"
barked the king. The holographic representation of the star system showed what they had feared. The Dorkohj were upon them. The chancellor gazed with horror at what he saw transpire across the view screen. It was too late. The Grelic system would fall, and the Confederacy and everyone in it would perish. Unless... The king wasted no time. He slammed his hand down on the red button built into his throne's armrest and shouted to everyone within range of his hearing,
"Release the madman!"
He turned to the chancellor and said, almost with contempt,
"The clerics can sort it out later."
Grundvig's blood ran cold. "How could you? What have you done?"
"We were dead anyway. At least this way there's a chance. There's probably time enough for us to adjourn outside so we can watch."
And indeed, there was nothing left to do. The damage had already been done. Grimly, the king, his chancellor, and the rest of the council filed out of the council chamber to gaze up at the night sky. They could see the bright flashes of light scattered across the stars, and knew each one was one of their own starships bursting into clouds of dust and plasma. Pilots and crew members who had already been dead 5 minutes ago. Suddenly there was a brilliant flash of light in space, a supernova. Then all the stars came raining down at once. Hargel had done his work. They had won. Just before Grundvig lost consciousness, in the minutes before Hargel turned his sights to the capital city and wiped the palace off the face of the planet, he thought, "Too bad it doesn't matter." Thanks for listening to Immortal Works Flash Fiction Friday. If you have a submission, please send it to submissions@immortal-works.com.